في الجزئين السابقين من لقائنا مع السيد مايك فيوستر تحدثنا عن تاريخ عائلة فيوستر التي تقوم بتربية النحل وإنتاج العسل ل5 أجيال، وتحدثنا عن أبرز أنواع العسل في غرب أستراليا مثل عسل الجارا والكاري والماري. كما ناقشنا الفرق بين عسل الجارا وعسل المنوكة من حيث قدرتهما على محاربة الميكروبات. في هذا الجزء سنتحدث عن سر عدم معرفة العالم بعسل الجارا لحد الآن، وما هي الدول الأكثر طلبا لعسل الجارا، وما هي العوامل المؤثرة على جودة العسل، وغيرها من الأمور المهم معرفتها.
Western Australian honey is probably one of the best kept secrets in the world. Western Australia has a very small honey production, so compared to the rest of Australia, in total Western Australia produces between 1,500 and 2,000 tonnes of honey per year. Mm-hmm. The rest of Australia produces about 20,000 tonnes per year. Whoa. So honey production in Western Australia is very small. I mentioned before that our trees that grow here, they grow in very harsh conditions, but just the amount of trees that are available to produce nectar, to produce honey, aren't that large. So there is a limit to the amount of honey that we can produce in WA. Secondly, really, is that the industry is small and it's a little bit disorganised, and so there isn't really any single organisation now who has the resources, financial and technical, to really promote Western Australian honey properly. It's really up to the individual honey packers like ourselves to take our product out into the market and promote it and explain to people why the product is so good. Mm-hmm. If you compare, for example, our industry here in Western Australia with New Zealand, New Zealand of course being the largest supplier of Manuka in the world, the New Zealand Manuka industry spend maybe $20 or $30 million a year promoting Manuka honey around the world. Here in Western Australia we would spend only, well, a trivial amount of money promoting our Jarrah honey, for example, even though we think our Jarrah honey is a superior honey, we just don't have the resources to be able to take it out and promote it. So we say to people that when you try Jarrah honey, when you like Jarrah honey, when you buy Jarrah honey, you're really becoming a member of what is almost like a secret society. You have access to a product that is very special, and you're very lucky.
So which country that most demanding of Western Australian honey?
At the moment, the most demand for our high activity honey, so particularly the Jarrah and the Marri, the most activity there of course comes out of China. Mm-hmm. Over the last 4 or 5 years we've been working to diversify our market away from China, not so much to stop sending product to China, but to obtain other markets. So in that time we've been very successful in promoting our honey into Japan, and also now of course into the Middle East. So we're finding a lot of people in all of the Middle East, Kuwait, Dubai, Saudi, Oman, Jordan, Iraq. We're finding in general that people of the Middle East really like our honey, particularly our Jarrah honey, and so we're very, very happy to work with people in those countries to distribute our products. The demand for Western Australian honey has increased significantly from outside of Australia. 5 years ago, or maybe a bit more, 10 years ago, most of our honey was consumed, that we produced was consumed in Western Australia. Right. But in the last, nearly 10 years, maybe 7 years, both myself and my brother and others have worked very hard to promote Western Australian honey, particularly Jarrah honey, into the North Asian market. We've been very successful. Demand from those markets is very good. The prices that we receive and the prices that the beekeepers receive here in WA now have increased significantly. So yes, demand for our West Australian honey has increased overseas, but largely it's simply been because of an acceptance that the quality of our honey is just so high. As I said, our honey, just our normal honey, is probably the cleanest, purest honey in the world. In fact, many parts of the world cannot produce organically certified honey, and yet here in Western Australia we are able to produce organically certified honey, and indeed our Jarrah honey is, as we say on the label here, all of our Jarrah honey products, our TA 30, 35 and 40, is all organically certified. Our honey is so pure, so clean, we can achieve that level of purity to obtain organic certification.
And the quality of honey you distributed here, the same honey the same quality of the honey you exported?
Unfortunately, one of the problems we have here in Western Australia is that people are very spoilt, and they don't really appreciate the quality of the agricultural products that we produce. So generally, the higher quality honey that we produce here in Western Australia is now exported. So it's unfortunate, but people in China and Japan and Saudi, they get to enjoy higher qualities of Jarrah honey than is typically available here in Western Australia, unless people buy directly from us. The same applies though with many of the higher quality agricultural products produced in Western Australia. So for example, virtually all of our crayfish is exported, all of our truffles are exported, even much of our higher quality wine is exported. There is a much greater appreciation in some international markets for the very, very high quality products that we produce here in WA. People who live in WA just in their ordinary day, in their ordinary shopping, are able to purchase products which in the rest of the world will be regarded as the highest quality available. So it's unfortunate, but no, we supply our higher qualities of honey. We supply those to the markets who are prepared to pay the price that we think the products are worth. And of course, what's very important for that is that the income, those higher prices, all go back to the beekeepers, and that is essential if we are to maintain and even expand the size of the honey producing industry in WA.
And what the criteria and standards that you follow to ensure the quality of honey?
The quality of honey can be measured in a number of different ways. I think the first thing, of course, is just the fact that our honey is pure honey. We produce what is called raw honey. Raw honey is effectively honey of almost identical composition to what the bees store in the beehive. The purest form of raw honey is honeycomb. So if you want to enjoy honey that is pure honey, pure raw honey, eat honeycomb. The next step from honeycomb is the honey that we produce. So when we extract the honey from the honeycomb, we use the most gentle process that is possible to take the honey out without changing the chemistry of the honey by any substantial amount. So we don't apply too much heat or pressure or anything else. The only real difference between honeycomb honey and our pure raw natural honey, as we describe it, our forest fresh products, is that honey does contain some aromatic chemicals, and when we extract the honey, we can smell those. If you're involved in any activity where you can smell these magnificent aromas,
then those aromas, of course, come out of the honey. An extracting shed is a beautiful place to be when they're extracting honey. So that's how we extract our honey. We keep it as pure as possible, as raw as possible. But then in terms of how we here at Forest Fresh, we apply an extra level of investigation, of testing, to ensure that we source only the highest quality honey. And for that, we have developed a series of tests that we have conducted in the laboratory, so the honey is subject to analysis, obviously for the total activity, but also for other parts of the honey's composition. And we then make sure that our honey has all of the chemical attributes that we think are necessary for it to be, or for the honey to be of a quality that we will put or pack in our jars.
And how come poor storage of honey affect its quality?
Honey is it will effectively last forever. Honey has been found buried in pyramids in Egypt, in tombs that's thousands of years old, that's still edible. So honey will last for a very, very long time, but only if it's stored properly. Honey is affected by three things, and they are heat, ultraviolet light, and water. So what that means is that when we extract our honey from the beehives, we never heat the honey beyond about 40 degrees Celsius. The temperature in a beehive is about 37 degrees Celsius. It can go up to 40 or more than 40 on a hot day, but generally what we know from research is that as long as the honey is not heated above 45 degrees Celsius, it will retain all of its beneficial properties. So as a way to ensure that we are even more gentle than that, we never heat our honey beyond about 40 degrees, 39 to 40 degrees Celsius. The next one is UV light. Raw honey is actually alive. It contains active chemicals, active enzymes, and these enzymes are protein. And the best way to think of it is like an egg. If you take an egg and you put the egg in, for example, warm water, 40 degrees, nothing will happen. If you increase the temperature to 50 degrees, you will see that the egg will start to poach. Honey is much the same. If you, as I was saying, if you heat honey too much, you will change the chemistry of the enzymes. They will poach like an egg. The same with ultraviolet light. If you expose honey to ultraviolet light, that UV will damage some of these enzymes that add or that attribute very high properties to the honey. And the third one is water. Honey is a very dry product. It's very intensely dehydrated. It will absorb water if you leave the jar open. So what all this means really is that all of our packaging, so our glass packaging, the lid here is an airtight lid. We would normally recommend that people buy our honey in a glass jar like this, because you get to see just how beautiful the honey is, the colour. But this jar has an airtight lid. We would recommend honey like this be stored inside in a cool part of the house, preferably somewhere where it's dark, or at least away from any certainly direct sunlight or even reflected sunlight, first reflected sunlight. And if you do that, Jarrah honey like this, for example, this will easily sit on a shelf in your cupboard for 10 years, and there will be almost no change at all to the quality of the honey. If for some reason you are going somewhere where you think there might be a lot of bright sunlight, we would suggest that you buy the honey in these opaque PET containers. This opaque material here will actually stop UV radiation, and so this honey, for example, you could store in a more sort of light-filled environment, and there would be no damage to the honey from the UV. As with the glass jars, they come with an airtight lid, so there's no problem with moisture getting into the honey. And again, we just recommend it be stored in a cool place. You don't need to store any honey in a refrigerator. Again, these honeys have a natural, very powerful antimicrobial capacity. So no microbes are able to infect the honey, so you don't need to store it in the fridge, but you do need to keep it away from UV light, and you do need to keep the jar sealed in an airtight jar. If you do that, you can enjoy these honeys, or you can keep them for a very long time and they will remain fresh, and the flavour will be preserved.